guys, this is Daisy. I just wanted to let you guys know that I will soon be starting the Bunker Legacy Challenge. I will be starting it maybe sometime next week, and I wanted to let you know what the rules are. I am here at their website on purpleplumbob.weebly.com. If you want to go there and follow along with what I am going to read to you, or if you just want to find out, all about this challenge, you can. Or you can always just go to Google and enter the Bunker Legacy Challenge. It should come up right away. Okay, so it says, can you thrive in the bunker? When the end is nigh, retreat to the bunker. How will you cope with just the basics? Okay, the day Sim Life changed. In February 2015, a huge asteroid was discovered heading straight to Simlandia. All the Sim worlders that could evacuated the planet, leaving only the poverty-stricken or too sick to survive the journey to fend for themselves and hope for salvation. The asteroid split into several pieces on connecting with the world's atmosphere and devastated Simlandia. Very few areas escaped absolute destruction. The world has a few bunkers set up around the land that managed to survive the blast. You are one of the lucky ones. You survived. With no memory of your life before the event, no skills as you have no memory, or even how you found yourself at the bunker, the only thing you know is your name, and even that you're unsure of. Your challenge is to rebuild your life, your new home. You have all the basics and even a little starter money that you managed to find in a metal bucket in one of the bunker cupboards. Will you survive and thrive inside the bunker? Okay, and that is just the beginning. Let's go to the little intro. Okay, so this particular legacy challenge tasks you with creating a single founder sim, moving them into a giant lot, a 50 by 50, and starting out in the bunker lot. Your founder must build onto their house, build up their wealth, and ultimately bring in the second generation to continue when they die. In this challenge, you play a single family for 10 full generations. With less control over how your children turn out and more challenges thrown your way, the challenges ask the very important question: what kind of legacy will you leave? Okay, so then it goes on to let you know how you can get started on the new game. It gives you instructions on how to get the bunker lot by going into your gallery, and then tells you you can create a sim. There are no restrictions. You can pick whatever aspiration you want for them and give them whatever traits you want. Pick out their gender, wardrobe, body shape, and color, and even add custom content. The only two rules are that they must be of the young adult age and they must be the only person in the household. Take extra care when giving them their name, especially their last name, as many future Sims will have that as a part of their name, so make it a good one. And then it goes on to tell you which type of lot you can have and how much money you need to have before you start this. After that, what you have to do is go into the succession laws, and I'm going to read them off to you. When your founder eventually dies, you will need to determine who among the children will become the next heir of the second generation and the generations that follow. Your succession law is made up of 3 components. Choose wisely, and you must abide by this succession law for your entire challenge and cannot change it in part way through. The 3 components are gender law, bloodline law, and heir law. So out of what I read, you're supposed to pick one from each because that is what's going to determine who the heir is. So you're not necessarily picking who you want it to be. It's sort of going to happen based on these 3 things. For the gender law, I'm going to go try to go quickly. The first one is matriarchy. This is where the founder has to be a female. Unless there's no other female children, then that's when the boys become eligible for that generation. Otherwise, it should be a female. And then the strict matriarchy is when the founder has to be female. There cannot be any male as the heir. So if it ends up with you only having females, then kind of ends your generation. So patriarchy. And this one is similar to matriarchy. The founder must be male. And then if it happens that there are no more boys, then you can use girls. And then there's strict patriarchy. Founder must be a male and there cannot be any female heirs. And then there's equality, where it could be either gender, and then strict equality, where they can be either gender, but for every generation it has to be the opposite gender. So if in the first generation it's a female, then the next generation it has to be a male. So they sort of alternate. The next portion would be the bloodline law. you have a strict traditional, and then for this one, they have to be a naturally born from the previous generation parents. That way, you can always see where the children have come from. So, unfortunately, the adopted children won't count as heirs. And then you have traditional, where they're naturally born from the previous generation, and then adopted children can't be eligible unless there's absolutely no natural ones that are born. Modern, it could be natural or adopted. Foster, this is where the adopted can be heir and the naturally born cannot be named heir unless there's no more adopted children. And then strict foster, where only the adopted children can be heirs and the naturally born can never be the heir. And then it says here the gender law and bloodline law serves as sort of qualifying round. If either law names a child as ineligible, then they cannot gain the title of heir. However, just because a child is eligible to be named heir according to the gender and bloodline laws, it doesn't mean they will be the heir. The third category actually picks the heir. And then that third category is the heir law. So with these, you have the options of firstborn, which is the oldest, and this is in the order that they come out in the family, and then lastborn, which would be the last one that comes out in the family. And then living will is the person with the highest friendly relationship score. That's who can be the heir. And then merit, the child with the most fully completed aspirations. And then if there's a tie, then the highest level with one of the skills can become the heir between those that are tied. And then there's strength, where the firstborn is heir by default, but then it could be taken from them if one of their siblings beats them in a fight. Now, I don't know if it would be a physical or maybe like a game type of fight, but they have to beat them in a fight. Now, just because they beat them in that fight doesn't mean that that person can't get it back by getting into another fight. And then random, where the title of heir is randomly selected from the pool of eligible children. And then every time the eligible pool changes sizes, so every time there's another children born, then you have to re-roll using everybody. So each time you add on a new child, you have to sort of roll to pick another heir. So it could change at any point in time. And then exemplar, which is where at the beginning of the challenge, you name a single trait. This trait must be one of the founder's 3 traits. Any eligible heir that has this trait will gain the title of heir. If a single generation has no children with this trait or more than one, then they follow the firstborn rule, which is whoever is the oldest. Democracy. This rule may be used if you're doing it in a public way, sort of in an interactive way. So people can leave comments and then they get to choose who they want to be an heir. So let's say someone's blogging it, the people who read these blogs will decide who the next heir will be. So those are the 3 laws that have to be followed. So it's sort of random in a way because you have to follow all 3 of them in order to find out who the heir is. So even though you might want to choose a different person, it all is sort of predetermined based on all these rules. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So next up, there are rules along with this where it says that you cannot use any cheats, hacks, or mods that give you an advantage over someone else. So you can use any custom content and things like that, so as long as it doesn't affect the actual game itself. So you wouldn't be able to use the one that gives you a lot of money or the one that changes something major that can affect this legacy, basically. And then number 2 would be you cannot restart after a bad event. So basically, if they die accidentally or just something happens, you have to keep going from there because that is what's going to make this legacy interesting. But it does say that if your game sort of crashes or something like that, then it's okay. But you cannot sort of restart because of something bad. Okay, so number 3 is that you cannot move or merge in other Sims into the legacy family. So the only one can come in would be the spouse. So once you move someone out, they cannot come back in to the household. So you have to keep that in mind as far as heir goes, because once they're out and then you're like, oh no, I wanted her to be the heir, you can't. For number 4, you have to stay in the same block for the whole challenge. You can develop the house, make it bigger. If you're using anything else, like if you're gonna find a lot from the gallery, you have to make sure that the Sims can afford it. So if they have the money to pay for that lot, then you can use it. But if you have to use cheats in order for them to be able to purchase the house and everything that comes in it, then you can't use that. Number 5 would be they can use an anti-aging items once in their lifetime. So a potion, cow plant, you can't use any cheats or use the lengthening of the lifespan. Has to be set to normal. And then number 6 is you can't change a Sim's current aspiration, but if they happen to complete it, then you can go ahead and change it. You just can't use one that has been done before, at least by that current Sim. And then once a Sim dies, you can't bring them back from the dead. They sort of have to stay dead. And then it says you can plead with the Reaper all you want, that's fine, but you can't sort of revive them in any sort of way. Okay, and then number 7 is that you cannot bring a Sim, not number 7, sorry. Number 8 is that you cannot move or marry out the Sim who holds the title of heir. Everybody else can move out and get married and all of that, but you can't move the heir out because remember, once they're out, they can't come back. Okay, so the number 9 is that you can only play the legacy family that you're currently on. You can't play anyone else that happens to be in the neighborhood. You can move people around, but you can't actually play them. And then it has rules for spouses. They cannot bring any money with them. If you need to sort of merge people together in order for them not to bring in money, you can do that. Otherwise, you can bring them in and then use a cheat to take out the money. So using a cheat then would be okay because they're not supposed to bring any money with them. So at that point in time, it's okay to use a cheat to take off the money that they shouldn't have. And then you can move in as many Sims as you want. You can have several spouses if you want. You can even have them all live together in one giant house if that's how you want to play it. And then once that generation's heir reaches young adulthood, they have a primary spouse, which means you can either have one or you can bring many others in. And then the children that come from them doesn't necessarily have to come from the primary spouse. You can have them come from anyone else. Then it says here that they are aware that eventually a lot of the folks in the town are going to die. So you can bring in others from the gallery, but they have to come from this hashtag. It's hashtag legacy loves, which apparently was suggested by a boss, JINJA. So you can bring any people that are from there. You can get spouses from there and all of that. And you can go ahead and add your own entries by using that hashtag legacy loves. But if you're going to use that hashtag to upload people into the gallery that you've created, it says to not have them remember their skills because that way people don't choose certain Sims because of their skills to make them gain in the game. In that way, it's sort of a surprise as far as what sort of skills and traits that these Sims have if you decide to download them from the gallery. And then there's rules for children, and then it says you can get children either through pregnancy or through adoption. It all depends on what laws you have to follow. Now, for the adoption, it says both your Sim and the spouse must be alive and living in the same house. Children may only be adopted as infants. You may not adopt if there are any infants, natural born or adopted, already living in the house, and must wait for them to grow to children before you can adopt a new one. And then it says you can rename the child, and regardless of their status, when an infant ages up into a child, you must roll for their aspiration and their first trait using the calculator, and it gives you a link where you can go to use a calculator, which I will be using to find out what the random traits will be for every child. And that way you use that calculator because you're going to put the parents' traits, and then when you use a calculator it'll give you something random for your children based off of those traits that you've entered because of the parent. It says when the child grows into a teenager, you consult the calculator again for their adult aspiration and their second trait. Finally, Finally, the calculator will be used to generate the third trait upon reaching young adulthood. There's an option here to generate both aspirations and all three traits for a sim at once, though the proper method is to wait until the sim ages up. And remember, no re-rolling. One of the hallmarks of this challenge is getting randomly generated children, so you should keep the good with the bad. Since the traits of the parents have an influence on the traits of their children, you can try to engineer children by selecting spouses with desirable traits, but this is no guarantee that they'll have them too. And then it gives you some rules as well with ghosts. So it basically says you can try to save a person who's dying, you can use ambrosia to resurrect, you can invite ghosts back into your family, but they can't earn anything for you. They can't purchase potions of youth or complete any skills, aspirations, or any other type of scoring methods. They can't take a job. They can't be memorialized. The only way is if the Sims that are living in the household already knew them, then they can. Otherwise, you can't. An invited ghost who is no longer welcome may move out, just like unwanted family members. And then it also gives thanks to Pinstar and Imagining Mystique for the succession laws and the rules that were provided on the site. The next part of it was the scoring, but I'm not going to get into that because I'm still unsure whether I'm going to keep track of the points that I could possibly get. I may or may not. If you would like to, I will be very happy if you do, because then I'll know how good or bad I did, but otherwise, I may or may not. I'm still going to use all the rules and all the laws and try to make this into a really fun challenge. So, once again, I will be starting pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.